of the Conservation Act.
I call Richard Prosser.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to take a short final call on this bill. Mr Speaker, I'm disappointed. This is a bill that we really wanted to be able to support, and now we find that we can't. We support the idea of harvesting windblown timber, but we can't support this bill. We don't want to leave this timber lying out there to rot. It is a waste. It's a double waste. Well, Ms Barry, as I said, and as I've said all the way through, we would love to have been able to, but we had questions about the construction of the bill, about some things that were in it. We still don't have the answers to those questions. No one has told us why this bill has been set down the way that it was. I asked the Minister during the committee stage to answer some simple questions that we had, and he's chosen not to. You say it's just politics, but actually it's a lot more than politics. It's economics, it's people's lives. And it's about being honest. If your party had been honest about what it was doing and why, we might have been able to gain some more understanding. But we look at the way this bill was written and what it is going to do, and we wonder why it's been constructed that way. Mr Speaker, to start with, we wanted the application process for extraction permits to be open, transparent and fair, and it is not. The bill stipulates that the application process for extraction permits can be anything the Director-General of Conservation wants it to be. He or she can put an ad in the public notices, he or she can run a tender, or he or she can just simply get on the phone to a logging company anywhere and say, hey, apply for an extraction permit. We think you're up to the job. And then they can go in behind closed doors and negotiate some kind of deal. Again, down to the discretion of the Director-General. We'd love to see this work go to West Coast companies and West Coast people, but there is no guarantee that that's going to happen, and the bill specifically stipulates that it doesn't have to. We would like to see that the existing environmental protections under the RMA were maintained, and currently they're exempt for 5 years. And again, no reason for that was given. Why are the protections in the RMA that deal with water quality, that deal with land use, just pushed aside? No explanation given. Why is it that we're going to allow bulldozers to move into conservation land without any kind of consent, without any kind of regard for the environment, cut tracks, take logs out, push rubbish into the rivers, take water out for whatever purpose they like, destroy the whitebait, destroy greenstone boulders? Nothing so much as a bayou leave, no questions asked, no questions needed. Laid down in the bill, it's allowed to happen. And we're not told why. We wanted the West Coast to be the principal economic beneficiary in terms of jobs and processing. There is no guarantee that that's going to happen. It's not in there. Anybody can get this work. The way the bill is constructed, the contracts could be given to any company from anywhere in the world who could bring in their own workers because they have to be specialists, because they have to be able to work in the dangerous conditions, so they've got to be properly trained and qualified. And whoever it is that gets the contract, during the negotiations, behind the closed doors, with the Director-General, at the Director-General's absolute discretion, can decide that only their own people from wherever else in the world are sufficiently qualified and they will come in and do the work. We're very concerned that native timber that is recovered under the Act will be allowed to be exported in any form other than finished product. It's allowed to go out under this Act, specifically allowed for, against the provisions of the Forestry Act, in the most simply, basically processed form that can be, being sawn timber. Members from the government side made the point that timber processed in that way could be stored for future use. Yes, it could. We agree with that. But the bill specifically provides that it can be exported, even though it can't be exported in that state at the moment. Why? We're not told why. And we wanted to see that the royalties paid to the Crown for the extraction of this valuable resource stayed in the economy in New Zealand, and a proportion of it went back to the West Coast. Instead, the bill specifically provides, not only does it say that nothing about a proportion of the royalties going back to the West Coast, it specifically says that the Director-General can waive or refund any fees or royalties. Why? Why on earth is that happening? The Minister didn't answer any of those questions in the committee stage. So I ran a scenario, and I wonder if, when this process gets underway, and it's going to get underway because the government has the numbers to pass it, and again I reiterate, we want to see this timber harvested. We want to see this resource used. We want to see it utilised. We don't want to see it go to waste. We don't want to see it rot on the ground. We want to see people have good jobs, have work, earn money, get wealth, have that wealth stay in the country. But when this process begins to unroll, as it will, and the contracts are let to foreign companies, and the foreign companies bring in overseas workers, and they cut down the trees, and they pull the timber out, and they give it minimal processing and turn it into timber, and that sawn timber is then sent overseas, and there are no sawmill jobs in New Zealand, and there are no further processing jobs in New Zealand, there are no furniture factories, and our native timber ends up getting turned into furniture in other parts of the world using slave labour that we don't benefit from, and some of it's exported back here and sold as, look, New Zealand native timber, isn't that great? And the people on the West Coast don't get a dime. Will the Minister then front up to the West Coast and tell them why he has established this bill in the way that he has? Thank you. New Zealand First does not support this bill.
I call Catherine Delahunty.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker.